Somebody said something, now they got me on one. My idea of freedom was starting my own business and getting away from the W-2 grind. I felt tied to the phone. I now felt tied down even more because now I had a 9-to-5 to maintain. Freedom, by its nature, implies the existence of bondage. If I were to exercise the power of not showing up because I don't feel like it, I'm in bondage to my feelings. The formula is centered around 3 Ps: purpose, people, and process. Calls come in to a central software. Can I hire somebody to manage that? I did this for freedom. I was supposed to have freedom. I don't have freedom. That feeling totally resonates with me. What do I want freedom from? And what's the formula for that? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diehard Entrepreneur Stories. I'm your host, Devin Ramos, and today I'm on a hot one. Man, so I was scheduled to be in the studio to talk about marketing today, but as I was on my drive, I heard something in perfect timing. This is a topic that's been on my mind for a minute, and somebody said something, now they got me on one. So I'm going to share it with you. What we're going to talk about today is freedom in business. What does that actually mean, and how do we get it? I'm going to share with you my perspective and how I feel that I've attained freedom in multiple businesses. Also, I should mention that I've lost that freedom too. And there are times when I willingly will lose freedom, and sometimes when I've unintentionally lost some freedom and had to regain it. I'm going to talk about where I was at in the first place with freedom and why, like many other entrepreneurs, my idea of freedom was starting my own business and getting away from the W-2 grind, getting out of that whole entire space. I know that's going to resonate with many of you, so stick around. And if you like this content, please don't forget to comment on it, subscribe, give me some of your feedback, and most importantly, share it with somebody that you think could benefit from this. Today, we're going to talk about freedom. So I often hear a phrase that goes something like, I want freedom to do what I want, when I want, and how I want. Oftentimes this comes from somebody who's in a position where they're about to transition from W-2 employment, maybe working in the corporate world, maybe being in the military or some sort of structured organization, and then going at it alone into entrepreneurship as a solo entrepreneur, maybe moving from their current life into like a life of homesteading, several different examples like that. Oftentimes I hear this same, maybe not verbatim sentence or phrase, but it goes along those lines of having the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. And it sort of implies regardless of consequence. Now, not everybody says that, but that is the general idea I get from the person that's saying this when I dig in. Now, I've also said it like this, but over time, I've sort of shifted my views on freedom, and I have my current understanding of it. And what it's led to is really like action steps on how I'm able to attain what it is I mean when I say those things. So let's dig in here. So first off, freedom is a state of being. It's not an ideal of doing whatever you want despite the consequences. Freedom, by its nature, implies the existence of bondage. So if we're going to be free of something, then there is something to be bound to, right? So we're either free or we're in bondage. There's no middle ground. There's no such thing as semi-bondage or gray area. That's just bondage. We're either bound in bondage or we're free. That's it. So for me, freedom is the power to do what you want, when you want, how you want, but not always the act of doing it, and not always exercising that power. Doing it whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, absent of consequence or despite consequence, is just unregulated emotional activity or reactivity. So as a for instance, and this is one that's top of mind for a reason, is an owner of a cleaning company. I have the freedom to not show up to work today because I don't feel like it, without worrying about losing my job or somebody breathing down my neck or threatening me or being fired. However, there are numerous people counting on me to get things done. There are people who need my support. And if I choose not to come to work based on not feeling like it, it could definitely set the wrong example for those around me. As a leader, I am definitely setting the wrong example. I have the power to not show up today, but I do show up because of the position I've willingly put myself in. That's discipline. And that state of being, having the power and choosing not to exercise it, that is true freedom to me. Now, if I were to exercise the power of not showing up because I don't feel like it, to me, I'm in bondage. I'm in bondage to my feelings. That's not true freedom. I am trapped by doing the things, acting and reacting just on the way that I feel. And so you might say, okay, that's great. Awesome philosophy, but what do I do with it? Well, taking a deeper look, if freedom is the power, then what's the formula? Is there a formula? And yes, there absolutely is a formula. I think the easiest way to see this is in business. And oftentimes the formula is centered around 3 Ps: purpose, people, and process. Now, if you don't own a business, or you have a W-2, or maybe you have a W-2 and you own a business, there is a formula for the freedom you seek as well. And it all starts with digging into it. So if I'm in a W-2 job and I'm tired of the 9-to-5 grind, I'm tired of being capped at a certain amount of money, and I'm tired of being told when I got to go to work, how I got to go to work, all these things that are often said. Thinking about that at a much deeper level, what is it I want? Well, I want the power to control how much money I make or how much money I don't make, to not have a cap. I want to have the power to set my hours of operation, when I show up to work, when I leave work, so on and so forth. So how do I attain that? Well, there's a formula for it. And if you're working a W-2, that formula might be quitting that W-2. It could be having a conversation and negotiating going part-time, or negotiating some other terms because you have a leverage because of where you've built yourself up to in this company. Anything's possible. Looking at business, one of the first issues I ran into in my real estate company was initially I wasn't getting enough calls. Then I was getting calls and I felt burdened by these calls because I knew that I had to take them in order to have any sort of possibility at building this business, because the calls led to the money later down the road. The calls led to the opportunity to serve customers. I knew I had to answer that phone. So at a certain point, I got inundated and I felt tied to the phone. So the very freedom that I had sought after, or I was looking after, because at this time I was still in the military, so I was looking forward to this freedom, I now felt tied down even more, because now I had a 9-to-5 to maintain. And in between, I was tied to my phone. After hours, early mornings, tied to my phone, tied to appointments. What I discovered is there was a formula for that. And what it looked like were systems: process, people, automations, software, all of those things. So in that instance, what I did was I chose marketing that allowed me to filter some of my calls, have only inbound calls come in, figure out what the minimum next step was for those calls, and put it in a system to have as many parts of that happen without my direct input, and just do the things that I had to do. Now, this gave me a little bit more flexibility, but I still felt tied to the phone. So eventually what it led to was this realization of I need to build something out. So it looked like, okay, calls come in to a central software. Can I hire somebody to manage that and take those calls to get that off my plate? That was the first thing. And then the next thing was, well, what happens next? Well, after a call comes in, an appointment has to be attended. Can I have somebody attend that appointment? So then put another person in place, got them trained up, got them able to do that. Well, then there was a next thing that I sought to have freedom from because it sort of tied me down, so on and so forth. Now, ultimately, I didn't give up everything. At this particular point, somebody had to be the final yes or no on the deal and what we're going to do with the deal. And that was me. And that always remained me. And at the point of where my business was at that specific period, it was either find somebody to do that and train them up and give a ton of equity to them because of the value of that thing, or do it myself. I chose to do it myself. And that gave me the freedom I desired. I was no longer tied to a phone. I was no longer randomly throwing appointments in there as they were coming up, because as many of you know, when customers need something, you need to be there for them. And that solved that particular problem. If you're like me and you own a cleaning company and you're caught in the day-to-day operations, freedom might be an operations manager or some sort of operator to manage the day-to-day. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, easier said than done. It is very much so easier said than done. But the thing is there's hope, because it is a formula and you just have to figure that formula out. So as I think about this more and more, I think about, what do people really mean when they say, I want freedom? And oftentimes this comes at the very beginning, when everybody's on fire and they're just starting to transition, maybe from a W-2 to owning a business, running a business, not being an entrepreneur to being an entrepreneur, however you want to phrase it. Or maybe it's an entrepreneur that's moving from one thing to the next. We call that shiny object syndrome. Oftentimes that's when you see this happen. And then the other time is amidst like burnout. You see somebody who starts to get to the point where they're burning out, and all of a sudden, all I want is freedom. I did this for freedom. I was supposed to have freedom. I don't have freedom. That feeling totally resonates with me. But I'm here to give you hope, just like I found it for myself, that it is a formula. You've just got to figure out what it is, what's the power you're seeking, and what the formula is for that. What's the point in all this? What do you do with it? Well, my hope is to share my understanding, how I see it, so I can better understand it, because it helps me when I talk through it, but also to share it with you to maybe shift your perspective, and then to look for and ask yourself better questions on, what is that power that I'm seeking? What do I want freedom from? And what's the formula for that, so that I can make it happen? And then, of course, to make it happen. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please share this with somebody that you think could benefit from this. Until next time, we'll see you.